Welcome back in our last video in this series. Last time we do the design and we do the actions programming for all the items for this application. Today we are going to learn how we can integrate a user-defined class to be helpful for us during the programming. So for example, to have a new class, I will go to my project within the default package. I will go to the new Java class and I will name this class as a student. When I hit finish, now the student class is ready. Now before I start the programming, I have to double check that the GUI file and also the student class file will be in the same package in the same location. Now in the class student, I will start to initialize the attributes which is required for my program. Eventually it's going to be the private string name, private integer age, private double GPA, private string major, and private semester, which is integer semester. Okay, and we have private boolean has scholar, and also private string gender. So now I finish from all the attributes which I'm gonna need for my application. Now I can go and assign the method which I require. Now since here there is no matching requirements, I can give it and generalize it to put all the setters and getters for all of them. I can have the toString. I can have two type of constructor, which is the default constructor and also the initializing constructor. Always it depends about the application and the requirements behind this application. But now, since there's no limit, as I mentioned, we can make it as general to get and learn more about how we can modify it. So now to have the constructor, I will insert a code with a constructor. First one, I will make it with all the attributes to be initialized as a parameters, and I generate. And the second one, I will make it with constructor again from insert code. I will leave it empty to have the default constructor. In both cases, I have an important attribute, which is we didn't define it yet. We have an attribute which is going to be static, and this is static attribute. It's an integer and it's called number of students. Originally, I would make it this equal to 0 because it's going to be updated whenever I'm going to choose. The difference between the static variables or attributes with the normal attributes, the static attribute is going to be belong to the class as general, while the Boolean attribute, which is going to be the one which I have. Like an example, whenever I create a student, every student, they have different names, but the number of the student will be shared between all the students. So this is the main difference between the static and non-static attributes. Now, inside every for this application, of course, inside the constructor, I need to update the number of the students, and this is which makes sense. In different application, it's gonna be different type of updates, but for here, of course, whenever I create a new object or call a new object for the student, I need to update the number of the student by 1. And the same scenario will be even if it's a default constructor. So now I have the updates, I have everything here. Now I'm talking about the setters and the getters. For this example, for the time being for the project, I'm not gonna use the setters because eventually I have the initializing constructor, but still I'm gonna call them, I'm gonna create them for future use. So for example, here I'm gonna select everything. So I will have the setters and getters for all of them, as you can see. And also I will insert the code to have the toString. In the toString also I will have all of them, and I will generate. Now this is exactly the class, and now the class is ready. So I will save, and now I can go now to the my GFrame, and I will update to the thing that I have. So now I go to the source. Now if I go down, in a previous video we create the static variable here for number of the student, but now I don't need to do that because the student class will help me to do that. Now I will go back and try to modify whatever I have inside my application. I have to think that clear will not affect the object, which is only clear the items. The same scenario with the save. It will only take whatever inside this area and save it inside an external file. But in add and in load, we need to add a new student object, and when we are going to load, we need also to create a new object. Now for add, for example, I will go to here. Again, I need to read all the value which I need from the user, and then instead of doing this and doing this, I'm gonna replace that with the constructor. So since the constructor I need to read all the values, so I will say the following. I will have a student. I will call it std is equal to a new student, and in this one I will place all the values, which as you can see here, name, age, GPA, everything, GPA, age, with the right sequence, of course, which is matching with the constructor which we created. Major, semester number, which is this one, and has scholar, and gender. Of course, the values which I'm adding here, it's actually the passing here is these values which I read it from these fields. So after reading from these fields, I save it to these variables, and then I pass these variables to the constructor of this one. This will call this particular constructor, which is assigned to the attributes, and then will update the number of the student by 1 automatically. So now I will go back. Since it's ready now the set text of this one is not going to be like this. It's going to be as get whatever I have into the number of the students. So I will have to call student dot get number of the students, and that's it. And since this one is a static method, so I need to call it by using the class, not by using the name of the object. Now here for appending, instead of doing also all of this, I can simply copy whatever I have in here like this, and I can go and update that inside the student class. So in the student class, I will go to here into toString, and I will update this by typing like this. So I have now, like, I'm gonna return the name, comma, the age, the gender, and the GPA, and the major, which is the major. And instead of semnum, I will have semester here. So semester, and has a scorer, true or false, and that's it. So I'm gonna return whatever is here like this. So this one will update it to have it like the name followed comma, age, like what we have inside this one, the previous one, which is the GP. So here, instead of appending this whole thing, I will simply can say std dot to string. So this one will help me to read from, make it in the format that I created previously. This is actually very efficient. So whenever I call the toString, it will call this one, which is print for me the name, comma, the age, and in this particular format. Now also I have to change it for the load for the file. Again here, whenever I read the file name, I read the file. After that, I will read the file line by line. I will append the files line by line to here, which is I don't need to change anything about this so far. But now to update the number of the students, I'm not reading from the lines, I'm not reading any data which is related to the students, and to save time not to construct from the string itself, simply I can call the default constructor to give an indication that there is a student created. I will say student and with the brackets. And now in here again, I will say student dot get number of the students. By this, it will give me an indication that the number of the student will be updated. And now here, whenever I call this one, it will help me to call the default constructor, which is in here, and default constructor, which is taking care about just simply update the static variable. Now, let's try if it's working fine. I will run the program again to see the changes. Now I will import, for example, some files from an external file, the file which I created previously. So I loaded. You can see that beautifully the number of the student is 3. So it's working perfectly. Now I have, for example, to add Sam. Her age is, for example, 21. GPA is 3.4. Semester is information security. Semester number 4 has a scholarship, female. And simply when I say add, you can see that the number of the student is updated and also the format which follow exact format of the format. So now we can see by this that the objects also help us to integrate with the GUI. You can use it directly, or you can use the methods which is gonna enhance, of course, your work to make it more efficient during the program application. Thank you for watching, and I hope all these videos help you within the series to learn more about the GUI by using the Netbeans.